Hello, YouTube. It is October 10th, 2019, and it is specifically World Mental Health Day. And so, what I wanted to do is talk about why this topic matters to me, also talk about what I've learned over the years, especially in the last year or so, and then also what can we do about it. So this topic matters to me because most of you know that professionally this connects to what I do. So I have worked in a lot of different industries and fields. I've worked in education, I've worked for nonprofits, I've worked for, different organizations, but at the root of what I'm doing is helping people get happier and healthier. So even more recently, I was a credit counselor, and as a credit counselor, I was able to help people manage their debt and their financial situation. But of course, people are people, and they're in those situations because they're having personal challenges and personal challenges are often calling with a lot of emotions, sometimes even crying. So, I definitely had to put my traditional counselor hat on when I did that. So I love, being able to help someone become happier and healthier. I will admit that with my personality, since I care so much about people, it can be hard. I'm still learning on my boundaries. And so I do find it difficult if I have a role in which I'm counseling all day. That can be challenging for me because I'm still working on how do I help people become happier and healthier without being so attached to the outcomes and without, allowing that negativity or the sadness of the situation to kind of drain my energy. So I'm working on that. But it matters to me for that reason. I love what I do, but also on the flip side of that, I will say personally, it's very much connected to me now because I was a little bit oblivious. I won't say oblivious. I was kind of aware, but I really didn't understand how prevalent mental health challenges are for a lot of people. And I didn't really, yeah, that's it. I just didn't know how prevalent it was. I mean, there's so many people over the last few years, especially now that I've kind of taken a bolder step out front to say, that I am a coach, I'm a counselor, I want to help people in all ways. And since I've been, I self-published a book, which is all about happiness and health. So since I've been putting myself out there, that's when I've been more aware of it because I'm having these deeper, more authentic conversations with people, even strangers, and people are being honest about what they're really dealing with. And I did not know it's this many people. And, I won't say, I was about to say myself included. I won't say I don't consider myself to have deep mental health challenges, but I will say I've definitely dealt with, sadness, and I don't think I ever got to the depressed one. I think I tinkered with that line after having, the divorce and the funerals and then career changes unexpectedly. There was a lot that was happening at once. That was a recipe for some depression. But I practiced what I preached and I was able to climb out of that. So I won't say it's personal to my life, but I've been close enough to understand what happens. But it's definitely personal to me because of all the family members and friends, so many people who have dealt with it, and especially ones that smile and they're so resilient, and I would have never known. So you can't assume what someone's going through. And when I go to the third point, no, the second point is, what have I learned? So let's go there. The second point of what I've learned that mental health is sneaky and it's something that we need to talk about more. So I'm actually celebrating today, since today is World Mental Health Day. I want to celebrate the fact that we are talking about it more. It still is an awkward conversation for a lot of people. It's still a judgmental conversation. I feel that when we're talking about, someone having a heart attack, heart disease, cancer, or something of that nature, there's more compassion, there's more understanding. But when we talk about mental health, people kind of cringe. They feel awkward. They feel sometimes judgmental. I've had people make some very judgmental comments about people who will say, I'm dealing with X, Y, and Z. Some of them will make light of it as if it's not a real illness, going on. But thank goodness we have science now that proves that this is a diagnosable thing that we're talking about. Mental health is, very broad, so that can incorporate and include so many different things: depression, anxiety, bipolar. A lot of different things go up under that big umbrella. And so we can't just dismiss it as if it's not a real thing, and we can't assume that people who have mental health challenges are supposed to look some type of way. It's your everyday person. It's the smartest people in the world. It's the most talented people. Now that we see that suicide has doesn't discriminate, now we're realizing your intellect, your talents, your money, none of that matters when it comes to mental health, because we got to take a different approach to it. And so what I've learned is that, yes, it's more prevalent, But also my analogy that I've been doing that kind of helps me understand it is like comparing it to like a heart attack. So when someone has a heart attack, what you have is typically, not for everyone, but for most people, you have some genetic component. So you have some people who have a family who has a history of heart disease. So they're already aware that they have a higher risk of having a heart attack, heart disease, or some other factor, or some other, illness. And then on top of that, pre-existing condition, that genetic component. I don't think pre-existing condition is the right word to say, but on top of that genetic component, what you also have is the social and environmental circumstances. So if you have someone who has a family history of heart disease, and then on top of that, they got a stressful job or went through a very serious, stressful life situation, especially more than one, then that's a recipe for a heart attack, right? And when that person has a heart attack, we don't say, oh, we don't judge that person. We say, maybe their lifestyle could have changed a little bit. Maybe they could have, ate a little healthier. Maybe they could have decreased their stress more, but we understand it's life, right? Now, when someone tries to commit suicide or is successful or has some mental health issues, some depression or anxiety or whatever, we're just like, chill out. It's not that serious. Have better perspective. Be more positive. I talk about optimism, but when it gets to the point of someone having, a serious challenge with mental health, I'm not going to say just be positive. No, it's deeper than that. So there's more judgment and a lack of understanding when it comes to people who have mental health challenges. And what I've realized is when someone says a harsh comment, often when they say, well, they could have done this, or they're just this, or whatever that judgmental comment can be, it's not only just a lack of understanding, it's actually fear. People are afraid to face the reality of mental health challenges. People are afraid to admit it can happen to your family members and friends, the closest people to you, because when you, on the back end, realize someone really close to you was really deeply depressed or suicidal, and then they either tried or they were successful and you felt like you didn't know enough about it, that's when your world is shaken, shaken in that you have more respect and understanding of what really happens, when people are struggling with mental health challenges. And I'll say even me, as someone who has been in a profession where I've been educated on mental health challenges and depression and suicide, even with my professional background and even with my personal experience, there's still been times where I wasn't able to look at someone in my life and then notice that they were on that edge. It's not always the most obvious signs. It's not always the most obvious. So we do have to respect, their journey. We have to be grateful for life in general and never assume what someone's going through, because that is what's misleading. A lot of us are very resilient and we're optimistic. We're trying our best and we're putting on smiles and keep doing that. But sometimes we're not expressing the emotions that really want to come out, that need to come out. So yes, I'm an optimist. Yes, I'm all about some positivity. But at the end of the day, I know that as human beings, we do need to relieve those emotions. Now, not every person is the same. So whether you're a man versus woman, whether you consider yourself to be emotional or not, everyone expresses their emotions differently. Everyone doesn't have to cry to release sadness, okay? We can express it in different ways. But if we're holding it in, that is a recipe for kind of like a volcano exploding. And that's often what happens for some of us, where we're trying to be resilient, we're trying to smile, we're trying to, be grateful, but deep down there's something else going on. And so, yeah, we just got to be more compassionate because, we make a lot of assumptions. Social media is great. I'm a big fan of social media, obviously. I'm using it to, kind of grow my career. So I'm a fan of it. And I do believe it can be used for positive, but it's also a dangerous phase that this world is going through because we're not as informed of how influential it is on us. So I think other people are talking about this. Social media has a lot of power, so you got to definitely filter and you have to be careful about what you're watching and making sure that you're not, watching too much and really doing some self-judgment, because that's a lot of what's happening is social media has a lot of people feeling less about themselves, and social media and then just media in general is having us watch a lot of negativity. Too much negativity, is not good for the mind. I don't care even if you're the most positive person. We all have to have a boundary on how much negative or sad things that we watch. We're, even if people say they don't care, when you watch sadness and wars and destruction time and time again is going to affect your psyche unless you filter or have a very robust routine for letting go of that, energy and that mental image. So yeah, and then lastly, what can we do about it? So what we can do about it is be more compassionate and connected. Compassion means, again, a lack of judgment. We don't have to assume that we know what it's like to walk in somebody else's shoes, especially people who we think have more privilege than us. We assume, oh, what do you have to cry about? What do you have to be depressed about? That's what a lot of people say. What do you have to worry about? But you don't know what they've been through. You don't know what it's like to be in their shoes. So let's just squash the judgment. Stop making assumptions. Be more compassionate. Be more connected. Authentically connected. Look people in the eyes. Smile at a stranger. Let's be more authentic and connected to each other. I think that's a starter. And having this conversation is a starter. Okay. The world isn't going to change overnight. Let's just take it one step at a time. So this is October 10th. It is World Mental Health Day. And I thank you so much for listening.